Hey guys, what's up? So, I feel like as roommates we should talk about something very important. Hate speech. Let's talk about that. Okay, but what exactly is hate speech? Or how would you define hate speech? That's a good question. So hate speech is any speech that has no purpose other than to hurt an individual or another group. And the Supreme Court doesn't necessarily ban hate speech, it only prohibits speech that can count as fighting words. So any speech that might make someone else act aggressively. Alright, but how does it affect university campuses? So, hate speech does happen quite often on college campuses, and when it does, universities do not necessarily know how to respond. So, for instance, when Stanford was having a lot of hate speech on the campus, Stanford decided to create a speech code that would prohibit any speech that can count as discriminatory or demeaning towards another person or another group of people. However, the courts decided that that speech code and that many other speech codes are, in fact, against the Constitution. So they had to take the speech code down. Well, then speech codes should be taken down, shouldn't they? They are against the Constitution. Although protecting hate speech and all speech is abiding by the Constitution, hate speech in itself can have a negative effect on people. So for instance, you're Mexican, aren't you? So let's say there was a whole bunch of people rallying and protesting against Mexicans, carrying posters saying that Mexicans should get out of this country and should go back to Mexico, even if they are citizens. Wouldn't that hurt you, even the slightest bit? Well, even if it wouldn't hurt you, it might hurt someone else. It might hurt many people, and you could argue that they're just way too sensitive. But shouldn't their emotions be valued by the school also, not just yours? Exactly, so that means that speech codes are necessary in order to protect the emotional and psychological well-being of the students. Well, even though universities should protect the students, speech codes would only constrict the dialogue between groups with opposing ideologies. Students would be persuaded to only talk to people with the same ideologies as them due to the fear of breaking a speech code unknowingly. If we did have speech codes, us three would probably not be talking like this to each other. Then, in that case, what solution do you propose? Good question. Mandatory ethnic studies classes. You see, by making it mandatory for students to take ethnic studies classes, students will learn about different cultures, and that would help diversify their thinking and understanding of the world. Diversifying the thoughts of the students would help diminish the thoughts of hatred towards other groups, because those students would be learning to understand the other cultures. Therefore, there would be no need for speech codes in the first place. Plus, all speech codes do is limit dialogue. So that's doing the most, man. Let's not complicate things. No, actually, this would help students because it would help broaden and open their mind to the diversity of the world. Also, this could count as a GE for arts and humanities. Therefore, it would basically be a freebie since it would be mandatory. I see your point, and it is a really good idea, but shouldn't students still be protected by some sort of speech code? What is the purpose of a university? It's to educate the students and to allow students to educate themselves too, right? So, by allowing students with opposing views to exchange dialogue without the fear of a speech code, they could educate themselves and learn from each other and try to understand each other also, right? So any other questions, guys? Okay, so that makes sense. So hate speech would be diminished because students would understand each other a little bit more and maybe help each other appreciate the differences instead of attacking the differences. That's a really good idea. Alright, you're right, man. You do have a pretty good point. Of course I do. I'm awesome.